So we've established by now that I like King Kong. What with having a Kong collection and posting mostly Kong videos and owning a life-size set of Kong's hands. But why do I like Kong so much? What do I find so captivating about the giant ape? I mean, I worked for a zoo for 10 years, and I don't even particularly love gorillas. So why Kong? I suppose the first thing I should say about King Kong is that I'm not exactly a fan of the monster as such. I mean, I like him well enough, but as already said, I don't exactly have an overwhelming love of primates. I don't root for King Kong the way that a lot of, say, like Godzilla fans root for Godzilla and want Godzilla to win every fight, to the point where they'll even make up excuses for how he didn't really lose in 1962, or how he totally for real definitely won in 2021. For Legendary's Godzilla vs. Kong, I wasn't on Team Godzilla or Team Kong. I was on Team I hope this movie is good. In our Kong Facebook groups, you'll find that people are just as big a fan of Fay Wray as they are of King Kong. So yes, I collect King Kong stuff, but that's because of what Kong represents. Not because he's necessarily my favorite kaiju or something. So what does Kong represent? Well, King Kong represents perhaps one of the most perfect adventure movies ever made, and a perfect representative of its time. It's a movie that really couldn't have been made at any other time and been anywhere near as good, as several remakes have attested to. First of all, its execution is a clinic in tight, efficient storytelling. It gives you exactly everything you need to understand the characters and the story, without being bogged down in extraneous details. It moves along at a brisk pace that doesn't make you feel its 1 hour and 40-minute length. In the first act, we get to spend time with the characters who matter, but just enough, so that we care about them when the action kicks into gear. It sets up its pieces so that it can go full steam ahead with breakneck action once Kong meets his bride. And the cast, well, not exactly Hollywood greats, do bring charisma to their roles. And, Fay Wray is, pretty smokin'. A perfect example of the film's attention to efficiency is the Lost Spider Pit sequence. In the original script, the sailors pursuing Kong get stuck on a log, which Kong overturns into the chasm below. Then there was supposed to be a scene in which the sailors get mauled to death by giant insects. Depending on who you talk to, the scene was either filmed and removed, or never filmed at all. Either way, it was taken out because it was wholly unnecessary. The focus of the story was on Jack rescuing Anne from Kong. We didn't need a 5-minute sequence of no-name extras dying horrifically. It bogged the story down, so it was removed. The only pity is that we lost some great effects by stop-motion pioneer Willis O'Brien. King Kong doesn't just have good special effects for its age. It has something more than special effects. The sensitive touch of the master Willis O'Brien imbues the stop-motion models with genuine character. I know intellectually that Kong is a metal, foam, and fur armature just short of 2 feet tall. But what I'm seeing on the screen is a character named King Kong, who just happens to be a metal, foam, and fur armature. And it's for Kong that the film elicits genuine sympathy. Kong acts as both the film's antagonist and its victim. It eschews seeing him as a pure good guy. He's still a giant monster ape, running amok and killing people. Don't forget about that. But he's not a pure villain, either. We, the audience, are trusted to understand that his death was both tragic and necessary. And it could have been entirely avoided if he had just been left alone beneath the protective veil of isolation and legend. This is where Kong is durable as a character and an icon in his own right. He can be symbolic of many things, but he can also just stand on his own as a character. Kong can be sympathetic, curious, playful, and violent. His creator, Merian C. Cooper, wanted him to be a terrifying monster unlike any seen before, while O'Brien sneaked in moments to humanize him. He can also represent the things man was not meant to meddle with, or the primal chthonic urges of humankind, or the twin triumph and tragedy of humankind's conquest of nature. Some people even insist Kong is a racist allegory for black Americans, though that one is a bit more of a cell phone. I think if you watch a movie about a giant ape running amok in New York and automatically think black people, that's on you. But unlike other giant monsters who had to develop a character and a personality over time, Kong began with having both a real character and having symbolic depth. The effects, like the film itself, are understated for effect. The more is more attitude of later remakes belie how less really is more. We don't need an entire Brontosaurus stampede with a flock of raptors when seeing one sailor's terror at being killed by one Brontosaurus is enough. We don't need Kong in a parkour battle with 2 or 3 T-Rexes when the visceral violence of his fight with one is enough. Shoehorning in more and more and more dilutes what there is until there's no feeling left in it. The smaller scale gives us space to feel how visceral these moments are, rather than drowning us in a sheer volume of things happening. There is something to be said for giving us just enough. There's also the moody, Gustave Doré-inspired jungle that these models play out against. It's not just a black and white film. It is a film of sublime light and shadow, invoking the engraved illustrations of the Bible, Paradise Lost, and Dante's Inferno. With this comes a sense of scale. I know we always think bigger is better, and that kaiju need to be towering over cities. Godzilla and Kong alike keep getting bigger and bigger as our cities get bigger and bigger. But there is something important about the fact that Kong is big, but not bigger than his environment. He is still dwarfed in size and power by the primeval jungle of Skull Island and the concrete jungle of New York. Kong is a titanic force, but there are forces even more titanic than him. In that score, composer Max Steiner harnessed the power of classic romantic and impressionist music to effect in one of early Hollywood's greatest soundtracks. And that's when there is music. In scenes like the beginning and the end, Steiner knows to let the natural dissonance of New York, or the discharge of machine guns and buzz of airplane engines, speak for themselves. And that brings us to how King Kong, as a movie, captures its era so well that it could not have been made in any other. It opens in a timely fashion, along the breadlines of the world's most modern city. It is the Great Depression, after all, and adventure filmmaker Carl Denham is looking for his starlet among the poor and downtrodden. The fact of Denham being a filmmaker is an important part of it, as well, because adventure films were an important antidote to the Great Depression. The year before King Kong, the great Tarzan the Ape Man was released, and the year before that was Trader Horn, filmed on location in Africa. Merian C. Cooper was himself a filmmaker very much in the Carl Denham mold. His magnum opus was preceded by documentaries like Grass and Chang about far-flung exotic locales and peoples. Adventure films as a genre benefited from real-life discoveries being made around the world during the 1910s, 20s, and 30s, when those last blank spots on the map were being filled in. Peary and Henson discovered the North Pole in 1909, and Roald Amundsen discovered the South Pole in 1911. Also in 1911, Hiram Bingham III excavated Machu Picchu. Percy Fawcett disappeared in 1925 while looking for the lost city of Zed in South America. Gertrude Bell trekked around the world and acted as a diplomat for the nascent nation of Iraq in the 20s. Around the same time, Roy Chapman Andrews was finding the first identified dinosaur eggs in Mongolia for the American Museum of Natural History. In fact, Skull Island is basically the American Museum of Natural History come to life, right down to O'Brien's partner, Marcel Delgado, basing his dinosaur models on the paintings Charles R. Knight did for the museum. Films about ripping adventure in far-flung jungles were legitimized by real-life discoveries and exploits by European and American explorers. And most relevant to King Kong, there was the 1926 discovery of Komodo dragons, following on the heels of the 1903 discovery of gorillas. It was these discoveries that planted the seed in Cooper's mind about an epic film of primate versus reptile. So Cooper not only made a movie about exotic adventure and discovery, he made a movie about making a movie about exotic adventure and discovery. It is an ode to the golden age of Hollywood itself. Then with the help of Willis O'Brien and Marcel Delgado, he throws in some dinosaurs to really make it something. Skull Island isn't just a far-flung jungle in the Indian Ocean. It is a genuine lost world. It's not just an adventure film about adventure films, but a genuine escapist fantasy from the hardships of the Great Depression, which the film itself acknowledges by literally taking its heroine from the Great Depression's breadlines. Her literal escape is the audience's figurative escape, and her accidental discovery on the street is the American dream of Hollywood's golden age. And, as we all know, the adventurers return to New York with their prize. From the mystery of Skull Island to the glitter of Broadway, ending with Kong scaling the world's newest and tallest skyscraper. The Empire State Building had only been completed in 1931. Kong climbing it was, in its day, akin to Tom Cruise climbing the Burj Khalifa in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. It was the sensation of sensations, capitalizing on the real-life sensations of its time. Examined rationally, on paper, King Kong really makes no sense. A movie about a giant gorilla who fights dinosaurs and eventually falls off the Empire State Building. But by some bizarre confluence of forces, a gigantic ape scaling skyscrapers is an immediately recognizable icon of classic Hollywood film. Everybody knows it, even if they've never seen the movie itself. Suffice it to say that the remakes do nothing for me. It's more interesting to see what King Kong inspired than to see them try to do King Kong again, but worse. I do enjoy Son of Kong, the sequel released in 1933, as a kind of quaint epilogue. We see that Carl Denham didn't just get away with unleashing a giant monster on New York. He flees aboard the SS Venture, and we get a lot of charming scenes of life as a tramp steamer in the Indonesian archipelago. I can just imagine them hauling jade tiles, and bushels of bananas, jute bales, and tiki statues. Unfortunately, the Skull Island scenes are underdeveloped, and the finale comes out of nowhere. Had they taken more time, they could have developed 2 or 3 richer films out of the material. I also love Japanese King Kong, but that's a subject for another video. King Kong was lightning in a bottle that can never be replicated. Trying to remake King Kong is like trying to remake Gone with the Wind or Casablanca. You can't. Why would you try? What's the point? Do you really think you can do better? I mean, really, you can't do better than the best. And King Kong is one of the best.